sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive. So today we're going to be taking a look at some news articles about Victor Wembanyama.
Oh, yeah.
And his recent diagnosis of
DVT?
deep vein thrombosis, DVT.
Right.
And I've got to admit, when I first saw this, I was really surprised because we don't typically hear about DVT in professional athletes.
You don't. And what makes this case even more unusual is that his DVT is in his shoulder.
Yeah.
Not his legs, which is where it's usually found.
That definitely caught my attention too. But before we kind of get into the medical details, let's just make sure everyone's on the same thing about who Victor Wembanyama is.
Okay.
And why this is such a big deal for the basketball world.
All right. So for those who haven't been following the NBA that closely, Victor Wembanyama is a 7'3" French basketball player for the San Antonio Spurs.
Wow.
He was last season's NBA Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, he's been having an absolutely phenomenal season this year, averaging 24.3 points, 11 rebounds, 3.8 blocks, and 3.7 assists per game.
Wow, incredible numbers.
Absolutely.
He was on a roll, and the Spurs were on a roll, too, potentially looking at a playoff spot.
Right.
So to hear that he's expected to miss the rest of the season because of this diagnosis,
yeah,
it's a huge blow.
Big blow to him and the team. Absolutely. Some are even saying, some sports commentators are saying it's a massive blow.
Oh, wow.
And that the Spurs' chances of making the playoffs have dwindled significantly.
Okay, so let's kind of unpack what DVT is all about.
Okay.
It sounds pretty serious.
Yeah, it can be. Deep vein thrombosis is basically a condition where a blood clot forms in a deep vein.
Okay.
Usually in the legs, thighs, or pelvis. And as we said in Wembanyama's case, it's in his shoulder, which is less common. Now, the danger with DVT is that if this clot breaks free, it can travel to the lungs.
Oh.
And that's when things get really serious.
That sounds really scary.
Yeah.
What happened if it reaches the lung?
Well, that's called a pulmonary embolism.
Okay.
And it's potentially life-threatening because the clot can block blood flow to the lungs.
Wow.
And the thing is, DVT can be asymptomatic.
Oh, okay.
Meaning you might not even know you have it until a complication like this occurs.
So it can be kind of a silent thing. It can be hidden.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is why it's important to be aware of the risks and the symptoms.
I see. So we know it usually happens in the legs, but what are some of the things that actually cause it?
Well, the most common risk factors are things like prolonged immobility, which is why you hear about it with long flights, recent surgery, or just sitting for extended periods. Certain medical conditions, smoking, and family history of blood clots can also increase the risk.
That makes sense. But it doesn't really fit the profile of a young, active athlete like Wembanyama does it.
You're right.
He's constantly moving.
Yeah, it's less common to see DVT in someone like Wembanyama, who is so physically fit and active.
Right.
So it raises the question, are there other underlying factors at play?
That's a really interesting point. So given his active lifestyle, what does this diagnosis mean for his basketball career in the long run? Will he be able to recover fully and get back on the court?
Well, the good news is that the Spurs seem pretty optimistic about him making a full recovery.
Okay.
And being ready for next season.
Oh, okay.
Treatment for DVT typically involves blood thinners.
Okay.
Which are medications that help prevent the clot from growing.
Right.
And allow the body to break it down.
Oh, okay.
They basically work by interrupting the clotting process, which is important in this case because we want to avoid that clot traveling to the lungs and causing a pulmonary embolism.
So no more slam dunks for a while, I guess.
Exactly. He'll likely need rest and limited activity, especially in these initial stages.
Yeah.
And his return to play will really depend on a few things. The location and severity of the DVT, how he responds to the treatment, and of course his doctor's recommendations.
That makes sense. So while Wembanyama focuses on his recovery, let's kind of shift gears and talk about the impact this has on the San Antonio Spurs. You mentioned they were having a great season in contention for a playoff spot.
Right.
With their star players sidelined, how do you see this affecting their performance and chances of making the playoffs?
Well, there's no doubt that his absence is a major setback.
Yeah.
He's a dominant force on the court.
Right.
And his contributions are going to be missed. But basketball is a team sport. And this situation could be an opportunity for other players to step up and take on more responsibility.
That's true. But Wembanyama has such a unique skill set. I mean, replacing his impact.
Oh, yeah?
Might be more challenging than usual, don't you think?
You've got a point there.
Yeah.
He's a one-of-a-kind player.
Right.
It's impossible to replicate his exact impact.
Right.
However, I think this situation could reveal some hidden potential in other players. We might see someone unexpectedly rise to the occasion. Remember, the Spurs have a history of developing talent and finding ways to win even when facing adversity.
Yeah, they're known for their resilience.
Exactly.
So it sounds like we'll have to wait and see how the team dynamics shift.
Right.
Whether they can maintain their momentum without their star player. What about their schedule?
Sure.
Does that play a role in their playoff chances now?
Absolutely. The Spurs have a tough schedule ahead.
Uh-oh.
With games against some of the top teams in the Western Conference.
Oh, wow.
How they perform in those games will be crucial for their playoff hopes.
So this situation raises an interesting point about preventative measures for DVT in the NBA.
Yeah.
Is there anything the league can do to help protect players, especially considering they travel so much and often have long flights?
That's an excellent question, and it's something that deserves serious consideration.
Yeah.
Given the demands of their profession, NBA players might be at an increased risk of DVT, particularly during those long flights where they're sitting for extended periods.
So are there any specific measures that NBA could take to address this? I mean, we've all heard about compression socks for long flights. Could that be helpful for players?
Compression socks are definitely a good starting point.
Okay.
They can improve blood flow in the legs,
Okay.
which can reduce the risk of clot formation.
Okay.
Educating players about DVT and its risk factors is also really important.
Yeah.
So they can be more proactive about their health.
Right.
Simple things like staying hydrated, getting up and moving around during flights, and doing some leg exercises can make a difference.
Makes sense. What about genetic testing? I mean, we've been learning about how genetics can play a role in a person's risk for certain conditions.
Right.
Could that be a factor here?
That's a fascinating thought.
Yeah. So
area where further research is definitely needed.
Okay.
There's some evidence suggesting that certain genetic mutations can increase the risk of blood clotting disorders.
Okay.
If we can identify those who are genetically predisposed,
yeah,
we can potentially implement more personalized preventative measures.
It's amazing how this one case has sparked a whole conversation about a health issue.
Right.
That we might not have been paying enough attention to in the NBA.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the physical aspect of DVT. There's also the mental and emotional toll.
Absolutely. We've been focusing on the medical aspects and the impact on the Spurs, but it's crucial to remember that Wembanyama is a person, not just a basketball player.
Right.
Having his season cut short, this must be incredibly disappointing for him.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
It's got to be tough.
On top of the physical challenges of dealing with DVT,
right,
it's important for him to have a strong support system around him during this time.
Yeah.
He'll need the support of his family, friends, teammates, and fans as he navigates this challenge and focuses on his recovery.
So what can fans do to show their support during this time?
I think even simple gestures can go a long way.
Okay.
Sending messages of encouragement.
Yeah.
Expressing their well wishes for his recovery.
Right.
And letting him know they're looking forward to seeing him back on the court when he's ready.
Right.
Those things can make a difference.
Yeah.
Fans have a powerful voice.
Yeah.
And their support could be a source of strength for him during this challenging time.
It's interesting how this deep dive started with us looking into news articles about a basketball player's injury. And now we're discussing everything from the complexities of DVT and its potential prevalence in the NBA to the importance of preventative measures.
Yeah.
And the role of genetics.
It's amazing what you find when you really delve into a topic.
It is.
It's a reminder that there's always more to learn.
Yeah.
Even about things we think we understand.
Right.
It highlights the importance of staying curious and asking questions.
It's true.
Sometimes those questions lead us down unexpected paths.
Yeah.
That's where the real insights are found.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, and I think it's important for us to circle back to Victor Wembanyama and acknowledge the impact this has had on him personally.
Yeah.
We're all pulling for him to make a full recovery, both physically and emotionally.
Absolutely.
And can't wait to see him back on the court dominating the game.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
This situation, while unfortunate, has the potential to bring about positive changes in how we approach athlete health and well-being.
That's a good point.
It's a reminder that even amidst the excitement of the game, the health of the players should always be a top priority.
Before we wrap things up, I have one last thought-provoking question for you.
Okay.
And our listeners.
All right.
We've talked about the NBA potentially implementing preventative measures.
Right.
The role of genetics and the need for further research. But what about the individual athlete?
Yeah.
What role can they play in protecting their own health? Especially in a demanding profession like professional basketball.
That's a great question to end on.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that athletes aren't just passive recipients of care. They're active participants in their own health journey.
That's a really good point.
They have a responsibility to educate themselves, to advocate for their needs, and to make choices that support their well-being both on and off the court. This includes things like prioritizing sleep, nutrition, and recovery, staying hydrated, and listening to their bodies.
Those are all good things.
It's a collaborative effort between the athlete, the medical team, and the organization to create a culture that prioritizes health and well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating how this can shift our perspective and make us realize that even elite athletes are vulnerable.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that health should always be the priority.
And it's not just about preventing serious conditions like DVT.
Right.
It's about creating a culture of well-being where athletes feel empowered to speak up about any health concerns they might have.
Right.
Even if they seem minor.
Yeah.
Early detection and intervention are key for any health issue, whether it's a physical injury or a mental health concern.
That's a great point. It's all connected, isn't it?
Exactly.
Physical health, mental health, the demands of the sport,
Right.
the pressure to perform.
Yeah, it all plays a role.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to have a holistic approach to athlete care.
Right.
We need to move beyond just treating injuries and start focusing on preventing them.
Yeah.
And promoting overall well-being.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think we've come full circle. We started with Victor Wembanyama's DVT diagnosis.
Right.
And we've explored the medical aspects, the impact on his team, and the broader implications for athlete health.
We've even touched on the role of genetics and the potential for personalized preventative measures.
Yeah.
Which is a really exciting area of research.
It's incredible to think that we might one day be able to tailor preventative strategies to an athlete's individual genetic profile.
Right.
That could be game-changing, not just for basketball.
Oh, absolutely.
But for all sports.
Yeah, for all sports.
This has been such an incredible conversation.
It has.
I mean, we delved into the complexities of DVT, learned about the challenges Wembanyama and the Spurs are facing, and explored some potential solutions for preventing similar situations in the future.
Yeah, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much more to explore when it comes to the intersection of sports and medicine.
Absolutely.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's always something new to learn, and every case, every story can teach us something valuable.
All right, so to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of DVT, its impact on Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs.
Right.
And the broader conversation it has sparked about athlete health.
We encourage you to stay curious, keep asking questions, and continue exploring the world with us here at the Deep Dive.
Until next time, stay well and keep those thought-provoking questions coming.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.